The most extraordinary feature of the Brexit negotiations is that British ministers still appear not to understand them. Theresa May's statement to the Commons on Monday represented a masterclass in delusion. Nearly 28 months after the referendum, and a week after missing the first concrete deadline for a deal, the Prime Minister itemized an elaborate list of new demands as if placing an order at a Waitrose that no longer existed. May's list was long and complex. The EU must legally commit to a joint customs territory, RED, a customs union, to replace the Northern Ireland-only backstop. This solution must not be permanent or even indefinite. The UK must be allowed to choose, unilaterally, between implementing this backstop and extending the transition period as an alternative to it. And such an extension must only last a few months before the new trading relationship kicks in and nullifies the backstop. No matter that such demands should have been issued at the start of the negotiation, not the end. They are, individually and collectively, impossible to deliver. The backstop keeps Northern Ireland in the EU's customs union and single market for goods as a last resort. Because it is designed to preserve an invisible Irish land border in perpetuity, it cannot be time-limited. That is its most fundamental feature. May knows this because she signed an agreement guaranteeing it. Paragraph 49 of last December's joint report promised full alignment with EU rules which preserve the invisible border, now or in the future. Quick guide: a backstop is required to ensure there is no hard border in Ireland if a comprehensive free trade deal cannot be signed before the end of 2020. Theresa May has proposed to the EU that the whole of the UK would remain in the customs union after Brexit, but Brussels has said it needs more time to evaluate the proposal. As a result, the EU insists on having its own backstop, the backstop to the backstop, which would mean Northern Ireland would remain in the single market and customs union in the absence of a free trade deal, prompting fierce objections from conservative hard Brexiters and the debt which props up her government. That prompted May to propose a country-wide alternative in which the whole of the UK would remain in parts of the customs union after Brexit. The EU still requires a backstop to the backstop, effectively an insurance policy for the insurance policy. And they want this to be the Northern Ireland-only solution that they had previously proposed, May told MPs. Raising the stakes, the Prime Minister said the EU's insistence amounted a threat to the constitution of the UK. We have been clear that we cannot agree to anything that threatens the integrity of our United Kingdom, she added. Thank you for your feedback. The backstop is no more optional than an open Irish border. May has committed to both. The government cannot unilaterally replace the provision with an extended transition, or casually discard it when the transition ends and the new relationship begins. May is correct that the backstop is an insurance policy and nobody wants to activate it. But nobody buys travel insurance that expires the moment they begin their holiday. May's wheeze of extending the transition therefore represents a total irrelevance. It is not just that a trade deal demands a transition extension of several years rather than a few months, at the end of it you still need a backstop. This backstop is not neutered by the simple establishment of a trade deal, but a trade deal that specifically replicates a customs union and single market in goods. The other crucial element of the backstop is its specificity to Northern Ireland. The EU wants a trade deal with the UK, but it insists on an open border in Ireland. The UK cannot, therefore, simply peg the border issue to the future relationship. Dublin and Brussels require the backstop to form a part of the withdrawal treaty. This is not just about the apparatus of Article 50, which precludes a legally binding trade agreement before Brexit Day, but also the actions of a future UK Parliament. France would be compelled to institute new checks at its border. Port operators have warned that such checks could lead to gridlock. Photographed YUIMOC-PA. The UK and EU could, for example, agree to a checkers-style solution that prevents new border infrastructure either on the island of Ireland or in the Irish Sea. But if a future UK Parliament wished to downgrade that to a Canada-style deal, the backstop would have to kick in and Parliament would be unable to include Northern Ireland in its new plans. Mindful of the concerns, the EU has made a concession, namely, committing to negotiate an indefinite all-UK customs union on top of the backstop. Importantly, this does not replicate Chequers by offering an all-UK single market in goods, and Brussels remains firm that the rest of the UK cannot have free movement of goods without signing up to free movement of people. The proposed deal thus entails increased checks on food and livestock travelling from the rest of the UK to Northern Ireland as a price for the UK ending free movement of people. With characteristic foolishness, May has responded not with compromise but obstacles, prioritizing political red lines over economic cliff edges. But her key problem is not staying in the customs union, it is leaving the single market. Northern Ireland must retain the free movement of goods. Without freedom of movement, the rest of the UK may not. The consequences of this go beyond the partial separation of Great Britain and Northern Ireland through increased regulatory checks. They transcend even the rage of the DUP. If Britain faces a new border in the Irish Sea, it also faces one at the Channel ports. The UK will be a third country outside the single market, and so France will be compelled to institute new regulatory checks at its border. Port operators have already warned that such checks could lead to gridlock and empty supermarkets, triggering economic strangulation. And so while May frets over our ability to adjust New Zealand's dairy tariffs, she ignores the dawning prospect of Dover's collapse, not just in a no-deal scenario, but even if we secure a deal. 5 minutes after midnight, now is the time for choices. The only way the Prime Minister can both override the backstop and guarantee cross-channel traffic is by conceding what should always have been her compromise position, a full, permanent single market and customs union for the whole UK. Such a move would mean Britain giving up its voting rights in the EU, and demands goodwill May has squandered. But only this level of integration can preserve the political status quo in Northern Ireland and the economic status quo in the English Channel. If the Prime Minister values future third-country trade deals and curbed EU migration over the economy and the UK's existing territorial integrity, she must explain that choice to the British people. Voters may not be so eager to endure her offer of economic hardship, and may wish to express their own choice on a ballot paper. If the Prime Minister understands nothing else about Brexit, she may in the end understand that. Jonathan Lee is Deputy Director of the think tank British Influence.